took that little girl from the farmhouse, Jessie. You took Maggie Rose Dunn. And then you had to kill her, didn't you?" "He knows about the two of us from the newspapers," I said to Jessie instead. "He might go after anybody who was involved with the case, especially anybody he thinks helped spoil his little plan." "Is that the way his mind works, Alex?" "You'd know if anybody would. You're the criminal shrink." "He wants to show the world how superior he is," I said. "He needs this to be as big and as complicated as the Lindbergh thing was in its day. I believe that's his Lindbergh angle. He wants his crime to be the biggest and the best. He isn't through yet. Probably thinks he's just getting started again." "Who's Bruno Hauptmann in our story? Who was Sinigi trying to set up?" Jessie called out over the wind. Was Jessie trying to give me her own alibi? Was it possible that she'd been framed by Sinigi somehow? That would be the ultimate. But how? And why? "Gary Murphy is Bruno Hauptmann," I told her, because I thought I knew the answer. "He's the one Gary Sinigi cleverly framed. He was convicted and went to jail, and he's innocent." We talked back and forth for the first half hour of the ride. Then it got quiet for mile after mile of open highway. We were both off in our own private worlds. I found myself just holding on to her back. I was remembering different things about us, feeling so bad inside, wanting all the feeling to stop. I knew that she was a psychopath, just like Gary. No conscience. I believed that business, the government, Wall Street were filled with people like that. No regret for their actions. Not unless they got caught. Then the crocodile tears started. "What if we go away again?" I finally asked Jessie the question I'd been working up to. "Go down to the Virgin Islands again. I need it." I wasn't sure if she'd heard me. Then Jessie said, "All right. I'd like some time in the sun. The islands it is." I moved in behind her on the speeding motorcycle. The deed was done. We streaked through the beautiful countryside, but all the blurred passing scenes, everything that was happening now, hurt my head, and it wouldn't stop hurting. Chapter 81. Maggie Rose Dunn wanted to live more than anything else. She understood that now. She wanted her life to return to the way it had been. She wanted to see her mother and father so much, to see all of her friends, her Washington and Los Angeles friends, but especially Michael. What had happened to Shrimpy Goldberg? Had they let him go? Had he been ransomed, but for some reason she hadn't? Maggie worked picking vegetables every day, and the work was hard. But, most of all, the work was the most boring thing she could ever imagine doing. She had to put her mind somewhere else during the long days under the burning sun. She just had to get her mind off what she was doing, and where she was. Nearly a year and a half after the kidnapping, Maggie Rose Dunn escaped from where they were hiding her. She had disciplined herself to wake up early every morning before any of the others. She did this for weeks before she tried anything. It was still dark outside, but she knew the sun would start to rise in almost an hour. Then it would be so hot. She went into the kitchen in her bare feet, holding her work shoes in her hand. If they caught her now, she could say she was only going to the bathroom. Her bladder was full, a precaution she'd taken in case she was caught. They told her that she would never escape, not even if she got out of that particular village. It was over 50 miles to another town in any direction she chose, so they told her. The mountains were full of snakes and dangerous cats. Sometimes she heard the cats growl at night. She would never make it to another town. They told her that. And if they did catch her, they would put her under the ground for at least a year. Did she remember what it was like being buried? Never seeing the light for days at a time? The kitchen door was locked. She had learned where the key was kept with a lot of other rusty old keys in a tool closet. Maggie Rose took the key, and also a small hammer to use as a weapon. She slid the hammer under the elastic of her shorts. Maggie used the key for the kitchen door. It opened, and she was outside. For the first time in so long, she was free. Her heart soared like the hawks she sometimes saw flying high over the hiding place. Just the act of walking by herself felt so good. Maggie Rose walked for several miles. She had decided to go downhill rather than up the mountains, even though one of the children swore there was a town not far in that direction. She had taken 2 hard rolls from the kitchen, and she snacked on them through the early morning. It started to get warm as the sun rose. By 10 o'clock, it was quite hot. She had been following a dirt road for miles, not walking in the road, but staying close enough. She always kept the road in sight. She walked on through the long afternoon, amazed that her strength held up in the heat. Maybe all the hard work in the fields had paid off. She was stronger now than she had ever been. She had muscles everywhere. Late in the afternoon, Maggie Rose could see the town as she continued down the mountainside. It was bigger and more modern than where she had been kept for so many months. Maggie Rose started to run down the final hills. The dirt road finally intersected with a concrete one, a real road. Maggie followed the road a short distance, and then there was a gas station. It was an ordinary gas station. Shell, the sign said. She'd never seen anything more beautiful in her life. Maggie Rose looked up, and the man was there. He asked her if she felt all right. He always called her Bobby, and she knew that the man cared about her a little. Maggie told him that she was fine. She had just been lost in a thought. Maggie Rose didn't tell him that she'd been making up stories again. Wonderful fantasies to help her escape from her pain. Chapter 82. Gary Sonigi Murphy undoubtedly still had his master plan. Now I had mine. The question was, how well could I finish mine off? How powerful was my resolve to succeed, no matter what the human cost? How far was I willing to go? How close to the edge? The trip to Virgin Gorda began in Washington, D.C. on a bleak, rainy Friday morning. It was about 50 degrees. Under normal circumstances, I couldn't have gotten out of there fast enough. We had to change to a 3-engine Trilander in sun-drenched Puerto Rico. By 3:30 in the afternoon, Jesse and I were gliding down toward a white sandy beach, a narrow landing strip bordered by tall palms swaying in the sea breeze. "There it is," she said from the seat beside me. "There's our place in the sun, Alex. I could stay here for about a month." "It does look like what the doctor ordered," I had to agree. We'd soon see about that. We'd see how long the 2 of us wanted to be alone together. "This weary traveler wants to be in that water, not looking down at it," Jesse said. "Exist on fish and fruit. Swim till we drop." "That's what we came here for, isn't it? Fun in the sun? Make all the bad guys go away?" "Everything is good, Alex. It can be. Just go with it a little." Jesse always sounded so sincere. I almost wanted to believe her. As the door of the Trilander opened, the fragrant smells of the Caribbean breezed in. Warm air rushed over the 9 of us inside the small plane. Everybody was decked out in sunglasses and brightly colored T-shirts. Smiles broke out on nearly every face. I forced a smile, too. Jessie took my hand. Jessie was right there, and yet she wasn't. Everything seemed dreamlike to me. What was happening now couldn't be happening. Black men and women with British accents took us through a sort of relaxed mini-customs. Neither Jessie's nor my bags were searched. This had actually been prearranged with the help of the U.S. State Department. Inside my bag was a small-caliber revolver, loaded and ready. "Alex, I still love it here," Jessie said as we approached the tiny queue for taxis. Along with the cabs were a number of scooters, bicycles, dirty minivans. I wondered if we'd ever take another motorcycle ride together again. "Let's stay here forever," she said. "Pretend we never have to leave. No more clocks, no radios, no news." I liked the sound of that, I told her. "We'll play Let's Pretend for a while." "You're on. Let's do it. She clapped her hands like a small child. The island scene seemed unchanged since our last visit. This had probably been the case since the Rockefeller family began to buy up the island back in the 1950s. Cruise ships and sailboats were collecting out on the sparkling sea. We passed small restaurants and shops for snorkeling gear. The brightly painted one-story homes all had TV antennas sticking from their rooftops. Our place in the sun. Paradise. Jesse and I had time to catch a swim at the hotel. We showed off a little. We stretched our bodies, racing out and back to a distant reef. I remembered our first swim together, the hotel pool in Miami Beach, the beginning of her act. Afterward, we sprawled out on the beach. We watched the sun drop down onto the horizon, bleed into it, then disappear from sight. Déjà vu, Alex, Jesse smiled. Just like before. Or did I dream that? It's different now, I said, then quickly added, we didn't know each other so well before. What was Jesse really thinking? I knew that she must have a plan now, too. I figured she knew I was on to Devine and Shakely. She needed to know what I planned to do about them. A young black stud, muscular and trim in his white bathing suit and crisp hotel t-shirt, carried pina coladas down to our beach chairs. Let's play pretend didn't get any better than this. Is this your honeymoon? He was loose and carefree enough to joke with us. It's our second honeymoon, Jesse told him. Well, enjoy it doubly, said the smiling beach waiter. The slow-down pace of the island took over eventually. We had dinner at the hotel's pavilion restaurant. More eerie déjà vu for the two of us. Sitting there in the perfect Caribbean surroundings, I believe that I felt more duplicitous and completely unreal than I had in my entire life. I watched the grilled pompano and grouper and turtle come and go. I listened to the reggae band get ready, and all the while, I was thinking that this beautiful woman beside me had let Michael Goldberg die. I was also certain she had murdered Maggie Rose Dunn, or at least been an accomplice. She'd never shown a hint of remorse. Somewhere back in the States was her share of the $10 million ransom. But Jesse was smart enough to let me split the trip expenses with her. Right down the middle, Alex. No free rides here, okay? She ate island lobster and an appetizer plate of shark bites. She drank 2 ales at dinner. Jesse was so smooth and smart. In a way, she was even scarier than Gary Sinigi Murphy. What do you talk about to a murderer and someone you loved over a perfect dinner and cocktails? I wanted to know so many things, but I couldn't ask any of the real questions pounding in my head. Instead, we talked of the coming vacation days, a plan for the here and now in the islands. I stared across the dining table at Jesse, and I thought that she had never looked more physically striking. She kept tucking her blonde hair behind one ear. It was such a familiar and intimate gesture, that nervous tick. What was Jesse nervous and concerned about? How much did she know? All right, Alex, she finally said. Do you want to tell me what we're really doing on Virgin Gorda? Is there another agenda working here? I had prepared myself for the question, but it still took me by surprise. She had fired it in beautifully. I was ready to lie. I could rationalize what I had to do. I just couldn't make myself feel particularly good about it. I wanted us to be able to talk, to really talk to each other. Maybe for the first time, Jesse. Tears started in the corners of Jesse's eyes. They slowly ran down her cheeks, shiny streams in the candlelight. I love you, Alex, Jesse whispered. It's just that it will always be so hard for the two of us. It's been hard so far. Are you saying the world isn't ready for us? I asked her. Or aren't we ready for the world? I don't know which of those is right. Does it matter that it's just so hard? We walked along the beach after dinner, down toward a shipwrecked galleon. The picturesque wreck was stranded about 1/4 of a mile from the main pavilion and restaurant. The beach appeared to be deserted. There was some